if you can hit $1 million in revenue, you're likely somewhere in the 100 to 150K net profit range on the back end of that, which is, I assume, making a living, right? That might not be where you'd like to get to. I would assume that is enough for most people to replace their income at their job. And so, welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off. Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. And today we're answering the question, can you make a living dropshipping? I think we have quite a bit of evidence to answer this question, but I do think it is a little bit nuanced. So, right off the gates, I'm going to tell you, yes, you can make a living dropshipping. We have plenty of students who make a living dropshipping. In fact, as I'm recording today, we had one of our students reach out in less than a year. He is already quitting his job. He is well over on a multi-million-dollar run rate for his business, which is unbelievable. And so, congratulations to Ben. I'm shouting him out. Great name, also great business, and great human. So we've seen this before. You can definitely make a living dropshipping, John. I know we know plenty of people have, but where do you think this question comes from? Is it somebody who's thinking about low ticket again, and they're asking a question of whether they can sell enough trinkets to make a living wage?
Yeah, I mean, yes, undoubtedly that's probably part of it for some people. I think it goes a bit further back. I mean, some people will be asking this question because they're in a position where they would like to move on from whatever is currently paying for their living expenses, making a living for them, and they're probably evaluating different ideas out there, and dropshipping being one of them. Dropshipping, even in the broad sense, let alone whether it's high ticket or low ticket, they've heard about dropshipping, and you're wondering, look, is this a thing that can really grow to something that can replace my current income, and probably thinking of it like an average sort of income. So I think it really comes from the place of trying to work out whether this is a, viable avenue to invest some time into to help you move on from whatever is currently, for most people, the thing that you would like to leave. The same thing it was for both of us. We got into dropshipping to find an avenue to make enough money to be able to confidently move away from our existing employment that we had at the time. We're both living proof that that's possible, because 10 years later, or eight or 9 years later, after ending those various employments, here we are still. And look, it's a fair question to ask. Dropshipping is one of those things that there's a bit of online hype around, and some people are out there who are probably less believable than others that you might hear from, and so I think, given it sounds easy on the outside, I think people do have that level of, or can have that level of kind of skepticism about, is it really a thing? Because it seems so easy from the outside. It seems too simple to be real. Do you know what I mean? I think people, once again, I don't necessarily blame people for thinking that from the outside when you've had no exposure to it yet. I think it's a real question to ask. If you're listening in and you'd like to take the first steps towards building your own high-ticket dropshipping business, head to dropshipbreakthru.com/go, where we've got a free training waiting for you that's going to walk you through the first steps you need to take to start your own high-ticket dropshipping business, and I'm going to walk you through an actual example of what one of these businesses looks like.
I think a living is subjective too, right? That
sure.
Someone living in New York is living a very different life than I'm living here in Wisconsin, to someone living in California, to Australia. I don't know what your cost of living is over there. I live in a,
It's high.
I live in a cheaper section myself, and other people live in higher ones. And so, where is that number? But, we've done simple math on this show before. Most businesses, 10 to 15% net margins at the end of the day, all out. And so if you do $1 million in revenue, which we have many students who have crossed that, we give out awards for that at our event, by the way. If you can hit $1 million in revenue, you're likely somewhere in the 100 to 150K net profit range on the back end of that, which is, I assume, making a living, right? That might not be where you'd like to get to, but I would assume that is enough for most people to replace their income at their job. And so we've got a lot of evidence at this point to answer this question. I think if you were asking somebody, earlier when we started 10 years ago, there would be a lot less evidence of people like you and me. There was, Wayfair, who had ran a bunch of stores and then combined into Wayfair back then, and there was other people. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think there was quite the evidence that is out there, let alone the evidence we have of people literally in our course who have changed their lives through high-ticket dropshipping.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk to a lot of people, in the course of our business here at Dropship Breakthru, who are looking to get into dropshipping, and I talk to them on the phone, and it's a question. This is the most common reason that people, I think, come to us to talk about, starting a business and doing it with our help is like, I'm working a job. I don't really want to be working that anymore, or I don't like the idea of thinking that I'm going to be working that for, another 20 years plus or whatever it is, based on their age. And I want to find something else that I can do for myself that can give me that avenue. Like, that's literally the most common reason by, like, I don't know. That's 90% of people, I'd say, who come to dropshipping are in that sort of thing. And so you ask them the question around, okay, so I always like to, step through some examples with them, and like we've done on the podcast. And I'll say to people, like, okay, so what does that actually mean for you? Like, let's put a number on that. What's the minimum number that's going to allow you to do that? Because everybody wants to ask, well, how long is it going to take for me to make that's kind of the next question. Oh, it can providing a living, you can live off dropshipping, but how long is that going to take? That's the next question. So I'll ask people, like, okay, so what's the number then? And the number is never actually really that high for a lot of people. Like, I had somebody tell me the other day, I just need to make $3,000 a month. If I can get $3,000 a month, I'd be, as a minimum, I'd be thrilled. That'd be fantastic, right? And it's like, whoa, like, you can make a single sale here and make that much. Do you know what I mean? A month. Like, that's literally, with some products in the high ticket space, that's 1 or 2 sales a month, and you're there. You're at that. I mean, that's not going to be everybody's bar. That, I think that's a lower bar, but most people, it's probably like, once again, it's like $5,000 or $6,000 a month that we talk to. And, there are some people where it's above that, and some people it's quite a bit above that. But I've never really heard a number where somebody said, this is the number for me to make a living from it. And I'm like, oh my God, that seems really difficult. Okay, that's really going to take some work. For most people, I'm like, okay, yep, I can do the maths on that for you really simply now, of what it's going to take to get there, and break down what you actually need to do and how much you would actually need to sell based on what we see as average margins and all of that sort of thing. And it's such an achievable set of numbers, based on what we've seen, like, quite a few people do now.
I don't think it's unreasonable to be able to hit some of those numbers decently early too, but it's not like when I would do some of those calls, it's a I'll be happy when type of moment. And I think you and I are pretty good at deterring people of, you're still not going to be happy when you get there, let alone it's not like a linear path. You went from $0 to $3,000 a month. Yay, I'm here. And you're running a business, which is a living, breathing entity. It's going to take some ups and downs. You're going to have good months. You're going to have bad months. You're going to have new competitors come in. You're going to have competitors leave. You're going to have your ads working and then your ads not working so much. And you're going to have SEO working and then Google has an update or something like that. It's a journey, right? And so so long as you're willing to put in the work that is necessary to build a business, which, it's going to take work. Again, it's like a living, breathing entity that needs attention and care. I 100% think you can make a living, and you can make it as big as you want to. You and I have been fortunate enough to witness some 8-figure businesses, and the amount of effort that goes into an 8-figure business is much different than a 7-figure business, right? And it's a different look, it's a different feel. You have team members, you possibly have a warehouse, you have things like that. And so you could really take this business wherever you want to, from what might just be a side hustle for you, throwing some extra money in your pocket each month, to really truly making a living with this business model.
Yep, absolutely. I don't think it's ever I think where the question really becomes tricky for people is really it's the time element that people associate with it rather than the number. Like, I think that's where people let themselves down a bit here, is having an unrealistic time expectation around replacing your income. Do you know what I mean? Because I think if somebody worked at this and they didn't quit, almost always you're going to hit the number you want to hit at some point. It's just, for some people it's going to be sooner, some people it's going to be a bit longer. And so I think Yeah, the way to set yourself up for success here really is not to, as much as possible, is not to tie yourself to a time period for doing that. Like, I don't think it's helpful because it's artificial. Like, we always feel the need to do more in shorter and shorter periods of time, it seems, I think. But, focusing on progress rather than getting things done in X amount of time, I think is a much more helpful way to think about working towards replacing your income.
You're going to have to put it the time, right? It has to come from somewhere. The effort has to come from somewhere. The work needs to get done. And so if you're going to make a living from it, you're going to be working double time for a while in order to make that a possibility, right? And then at some point, you're going to get to a point where it's like, man, I'm working really hard on this. It's bringing a lot of money. And then you're going to have to make a tough decision of like, am I ready to jump ship? Do I feel safe? It's going to bring up all sorts of other emotions when you get to that point too of like, am I capable of this? Especially if you have a family too, you're gonna have a lot of other concerns. But look, I think it's possible. I'm sure we could drown on a lot on this, but it's totally possible if you're willing to do the work. I think the path has been laid for you. I think there's tons of people that you can reach out to in our community that would be like, yep, 100%, like this works, and this course is legit. And so like if you need some of those people, there's been quite a few on this podcast. There's quite a few in our Facebook group. Look up the Dropship Tribe on Facebook groups. You can find it there, and definitely search our archives of the multiple guests that we've had on here to reinforce that this is totally possible. Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthru, where John and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthru will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthru.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.